Today we are talking about vintage diamond rings, and this presentation is brought to you by www.qualityvintageengagement.rings.com. Now, to start off, I want to clarify the difference between a vintage ring versus a vintage style ring. If you're looking to purchase an actual vintage ring, you're going to be buying a ring that is dated. It was, created anywhere from 40 to 50, 60, up to even 100 years ago. And this ring has history to it. It's been around for years and years. You can even get one that is considered an antique if you get a vintage ring that's old enough. Whereas if you're purchasing a vintage style ring, that's actually a modern ring that is made to replicate a specific vintage style. Sometimes people will have modern rings made to replicate a specific ring that they like, or they'll choose a style or a decorative period that they like and design a ring around the trends of that decorative time period. There were 6 different decorative time periods that occurred between the 1700s up until about the 1950s or so, and those 6 periods have very unique and individual characteristics and styles. There were different trends that were going on during different sections, and there are a lot of differences there. So if you're wanting to purchase a vintage ring, I would highly suggest that you become familiar with these jewelry decorative periods so that you understand what types of rings you like and what style fits your personality. I don't really have a lot of time to go through the specifics of these decorative periods right now because of the time constraints of this video. But if you do want more details about that, check out our website at www.qualityvintageengagement.rings.com. We've got specific details about the styles that relate to each of the periods, and we've also got some pictures so that you can see what the rings look like. But just very quickly, the earliest style is the Georgian style, and that started back in the 1700s. And then after that was the Victorian, then the Edwardian, and then the Art Nouveau, and the Art Deco, and the Retro style. And the Retro style was the most recent, and that occurred mainly in the 1940s. So you do have a lot of options that way. If you're planning on purchasing a vintage diamond ring, the first thing you need to do is decide if you want to buy an original ring or a replica. There's going to be usually a pretty big difference between an original and a replica. Many times those original rings are very expensive because they are, hard to find. They're very unique and they're just classic antique items. And then once you've decided if you want to purchase either an original ring or a replica, decide on a specific style that you like. Decide if you prefer, more of the feminine characteristics that the Victorian decorative period had, or if you like some of the more bold designs of the Art Deco period, for example. You've got a lot of options, so decide on what style you like. And you also need to determine a budget. It's important that when you're making a purchase this big that you go into it with a budget in mind. If you're having a ring designed for you, if you're having a modern vintage style ring made, you have a lot more flexibility with that budget because you can choose what types of metals you're going to use, which types of stones you're going to use, what the setting's going to be like. So there are a lot more options with a modern ring that is being made to replicate a vintage ring. But then again, they don't have the characteristics of the true piece. Those vintage rings have stories that are contained with them, and they just have a history in and of themselves that you can't find in a modern ring. And so then once you've determined your budget, decided what type of ring you want, get out there and find the best ring for you. There's a unique ring out there for every woman, and there are tons to choose from. You're going to have to look a little harder if you're looking for a true vintage ring, but once you find that ring, it's going to be very rewarding to be able to have that for your own and, be able to enjoy the history behind that ring. And on the other hand, if you're looking for a modern ring, you can find that best ring either by going to jewelers or looking online or contacting someone to have that ring custom made for you. So that kind of just gives you a general idea about vintage diamond rings, and the difference between a vintage ring and a vintage style ring. If you want more information about vintage engagement rings or any other information about engagement rings or diamond purchasing or anything like that, we've got tons of resources on our website. So check it out. Again, that website was www.qualityvintageengagementrings.com.